So, you want to master a language that's, well, just sound. Today, we're going to decode Morse code. And believe it or not, the secret to learning it might just start with a simple question about a single word.
All right, so let's start with this. Technic or technique? I bet you've seen both spellings floating around. Are they the same thing? Is one just a typo? It's a pretty interesting little puzzle, right? And it gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today. A specific method, a specific skill. And trust me, it's way more connected to Morse code than you'd ever guess.
Okay, so here's the deal. For the most part, yeah, they're synonyms. But technique with the Q-U-E, that's the one we all use, right? That's the standard word for a method or a way of doing something. Technique, on the other hand, it's kind of rare. Almost a ghost word in English today. Almost. Because it turns out it has one very, very famous use that's super relevant to our story.
And boom, there it is. You know this brand, right? Technics, the legendary audio company from Panasonic. I mean, think about their turntables, the iconic SL-1200s. They're absolute legends in the world of sound. So get this, that forgotten word, Technic, is actually at the heart of some of the most famous audio gear ever made. It has a deep, deep connection to sound technology.
And that, my friends, brings us right back to our main question. If we want to learn a language that is purely sound, like Morse code, what is the right technique? Not technique the brand, but technique, the method. And this is where the real story begins.
Now, if you've ever actually tried to learn Morse code, you know this feeling. Progress is, well, it's not a straight line. Not at all. In fact, pretty much everyone hits this incredibly frustrating wall. It's so common, it even has a name, the Morse Plateau.
And that wall, it has a number, 13. 13 words per minute. That's the magic speed, where all the old traditional ways of learning just completely fall apart. People get stuck there and can't break through. So what in the world is going on? It's all because of something called the translation trap. See, the old way of teaching Morse involved these visual charts, right? You'd hear the beeps, and then you'd literally count them in your head. Da. Oh, that's one dot and one dash. Let me look at my mental chart. Okay, that's the letter A. It's this clunky, multi-step process. And sure, when the code is super slow, it kind of works. But as soon as things speed up, your brain just can't do that mental gymnastics fast enough. You're toast.
You know, a user on Reddit put it perfectly. They said, "Stay away from crutches. They will keep you lame forever." And that's exactly what those visual charts are. They're crutches. They feel like they're helping you in the beginning, but in the long run, they're what's holding you back from ever really getting fluent, from ever learning to run. So the big question is, how do you ditch the crutches?
The answer is you have to completely change the way you think about Morse code. You have to throw out the old ideas. This isn't a visual puzzle of dots and dashes on a piece of paper. It is a language of sound. And that means you have to learn it with your ears, and only your ears.
Okay, the key idea here actually comes from psychology. It's a concept called Gestalt. It sounds fancy, but the idea is simple. It's about seeing, or in this case, hearing, the whole thing at once, not just the little pieces that make it up. For Morse code, this is everything. It means hearing the entire sound of a letter, its unique melody, not just counting the individual dits and daws.
Here's the super simple way to think about it. When I say the word cat, you don't break it down in your head, right? You don't think C-A-T, you just hear the word cat. The whole sound just lands in your brain instantly. That is the goal. That's exactly what you need to do with Morse code.
And this isn't some new idea, by the way. A psychologist named Ludwig Koch figured this out way back in the 1930s. He realized that the only way to get good at Morse was to recognize the total sound pattern of each character, its unique rhythm, its own little song. So da-da-da stops being one short sound and one long sound. It just becomes the sound of A. So this whole idea, this acoustic shape principle, is the bedrock of the two best ways we have to learn Morse code today. Let's break them down and see how they work. We're talking about the Koch method and the Farnsworth technique. Okay, so both of these methods start with one absolutely crucial rule. From day one, you hear the characters played at your target speed. We're talking fast, like 20 words per minute. Why? Because it forces your brain to hear that whole sound, that gestalt, right from the get-go. No counting allowed. Now here's how they differ. The Koch method is all about baby steps. You start with just 2 characters, and you don't add a third until you can copy those first 2 with 90% accuracy. The Farnsworth technique takes a different approach. The characters are still fast, but it adds extra space between them to give your brain a little more time to process what you just heard.
And you can see exactly how this works in this great diagram. Look here, the character itself, the dits and das, is sent fast. See how tight that is? That preserves its sound shape. But then, look at the gap between the characters. It's much wider. That's the Farnsworth spacing. It gives your brain a moment to catch up and recognize the sound it just heard, all without making the characters themselves slow and countable.
All right, so that's the theory behind it all. It makes sense, right? But how do you actually do it? If you wanted to start learning Morse code the right way, today, what would your toolkit look like? What are the actual steps?
Well, based on all the expert advice out there, it really boils down to 4 key steps. Step 1, and this is non-negotiable. Get rid of all the visual charts. Burn them. They are pure poison for your progress. Step 2, practice every single day. Even 15 minutes is better than nothing. Consistency is everything. 3, use the amazing modern tools we have online that are built specifically for these sound-based methods. And 4, if you're going to learn to send, start with modern paddles, not one of those old-school straight keys.
And speaking of tools, here are the heavy hitters that you'll hear recommended over and over again. You've got lcw.net, that's Learn CW Online, a fantastic website for lessons. There's the G4FON Cock Trainer, a classic piece of software that just works. For listening on the go, check out the Morse Code Ninja podcasts. It's a great way to just immerse your brain in the sound. And when you're ready to pick up the pace, Ruvs XP is the go-to for building up your speed.
So, you might be asking, why paddles? Why not a classic straight key like you see in the old movies? Well, with a straight key, you have to create the perfect timing for every single dit and every single da. That's incredibly hard when you're just starting out. But paddles are different. They connect to a little electronic box called a keyer that generates perfectly timed dits and das for you. This drills the correct rhythm into your brain from the very beginning. And hey, bonus, it also saves you from the nasty wrist pain that old-time radio operators used to call glass arm.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? The real secret to learning Morse code isn't about memorization games or staring at charts of dots and dashes. It's about a total, fundamental shift in how you perceive it.
At the end of the day, learning Morse is about rhythm and sound. It's not about dots and dashes. You are literally training your ear, not your eye. You're teaching your brain to understand a new language. It just so happens this language is spoken with beeps.
And all of this leaves us with one last question to chew on. You know, in our world of instant messages, AI, and constant connection, why bother? Why would anyone invest the time to learn a language made of simple beeps? What is it about connecting with another human being, character by character, through nothing but pure sound, that still calls to us today?